let's continue this conversation about the Big 12 with our first guest of the evening, Josh Neighbors. He has covered the Big 12 for a number of years in a number of formats. Now, host of the NW Pod 365. What do we got on? Oh, I like that shirt, Josh.
UCF long sleeve shirt, boys. How about that?
I like this already. I like this guy already.
That is good. Josh, tell us where to find your coverage right off the top, because UCF fans are trying to seek out Big 12 information everywhere. Let's start off with that. Where can folks find you and talk about the content you produce?
I am part of the wonderful 365 Sports Network. Crystal Ball College Football is the YouTube channel. You can find the podcast Neighborhood Watch wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. On Twitter, NW Pod 365. Also, Josh Neighbors. You all have it correct down there. Those are all of the places that you all can find me. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with you and talking about the Big 12. What a conference. What a time.
By the way, Adam, little inside stuff. We tried to book Josh last week, but Josh, he was going to see Oppenheimer. I had to give the guy a break. Josh, how was the movie?
It was, by the way, that is Christopher Nolan's best film. And aren't you all glad that it worked out this way? Because this is kind of the right time to be having me on. So thank you, Christopher Nolan. Thank you.
Your reaction now to this big news, Colorado back.
Yeah. So it makes sense of the first school back. And I have to shout out Andrew Marchand, New York Post. He had this one well before anybody else. He said Colorado is a school to watch. It made sense. They were the quietest. And I will tell you all this. Brett Yormark, from what I can tell, this is the sneaky part about this. He got them at a full price. $31.7 million is what everybody else in the remaining members will be making, and he got him in for that price. That is him getting that pro rata clause to ESPN. That's also him getting Fox, who didn't have one, to say full price, we'll pay for it. It's the first big kind of chip away at the Pac-12, and we know this for a fact. The Big 12, the Pac-12 are in conflict when it comes to kind of where you are in the television space. They are direct competitors. I've made basically every analogy in the book. You want to call one Wendy's, you want to call one Arby's, you want to call one Taco Bell, Chick-fil-A, whatever it is. You are competing for mouths. You are competing for those TV dollars. You are not the Big Ten. You are not the SEC. The ACC is kind of locked up. So it is a Pac-12 versus Big 12 battle right now. So that's huge. Obviously, they kind of draw first blood in this. And they take Colorado. It's a massive deal. It is a massive deal.
What's next, Josh? Obviously, at this point, I know there's a ton of rumors going on out there. I don't know if you have any sources, anything kind of telling you. What do you predict is next on the Big 12 plan of attack here?
Yeah, I spoke with some folks last night. So I know there's interest in Washington. There's obviously interest in Oregon. I'm not sure if you guys are pro wrestling fans at all, but the heist of the century is what they called it when Seth Rollins came in, pinned Roman Reigns, won the championship, cashed in the Money in the Bank. That's honestly what getting Washington or Oregon. I am back. I'm no longer locked on Pac-12, Big 12, excuse me. I am now NW Pod 365.
That's a completely different.
That's a whole other line of
questions. For a different day when you all have a lot more time. But yeah, it'd be a heist of the century. Because here's the thing, like, I love the Big 12. I love all the brands they have. The two biggest brands out there the Big 12 does not have, or that are out there, are Washington and Oregon. Those are two schools. Obviously, Washington and Seattle, a major competitor. They have been to the college ball playoff. And guys, Oregon is Nike's college school. They're Nike's college football school. To get one of those two brands would be a huge coup. To get them both would be massive. To get any other Pac-12 school would be a positive. So I saw Brett McMurphy's report today. They want to add at least 1 to 3 more schools. To me, I saw all the inclusion of G5 schools. No disrespect to those institutions, but you need to be targeting the Pac-12 schools. Strike while the iron is hot, wounded animal, blood in the water. Whatever analogy you want to use, now is the time to strike further, because those are the most valuable brands remaining. That's what adds more value to your conference. And also, once again, go back to the first point, weakens your TV competitor.
Josh, how quickly do you think this could move? Do you think we're weeks away from hearing about other schools? Are we after this season? How quickly do you think this could move with other schools potentially jumping ship?
It's a great question because I think the one thing that we saw when Oregon and Washington made the jump was a lot of people were like, okay, what happens now? Is it going to be fast, right? And we saw the one thing that paid off for the Big 12 was persistence / patience, right? I think they kept that public pressure up. They also did one big thing. They moved that roadblock. Brett Yormark had some things he had to move. He had the TV deal done, got it done. Oklahoma and Texas out of the league was not a done deal. He had to negotiate that number. And there was some back and forth. ESPN reported, hey, they're going to take a break. Brett McMurphy said, no, they're staying on it. Lo and behold, they got that thing done. They got the number to get them out of the league early. They were able to set their guns, set their kind of gaze, if you will, on the Pac-12 and on attacking that. And that's what they did. They went and kind of attacked, and they kept up the public pressure. Not disinformation, but, I mean, they kept up the pressure to the right people and getting that stuff out there. And look, Colorado said, you know what, we've had enough. We have not seen enough. So I would say weeks, is kind of the long deadline, but people are saying this thing might move in days. And I have to think that's the way it is, because the Pac-12 does not have years anymore. They maybe had years last year. They're out of years. They're on the last year. And here's the thing. You have to recruit. You have to tell the families, the living rooms going in, who are we playing? Where are we playing? And do I have to jailbreak my Amazon Fire Stick to watch my child play football, right? Like, how do I consume my son, my daughter playing fill in XY sport? That's huge now. You have to defend that. Those are the people that you have to recruit to now. And the Pac-12 doesn't have that. So I would say that means days or weeks, in my opinion, for the next kind of domino to fall, whether it be an actual TV deal they get or for another school to defect.
You know that Oregon and Washington are going to be fine no matter how it shakes out. But if you're Oregon State and Washington State and Cal, you can't like any of this.
No. Yeah. Well, does Cal or Stanford want to play big Division I athletics? I think that's a big question. And look, here's the thing. Like, I'm not somebody who's like crap on the West Coast elites. I was born in San Francisco. I lived in Virginia. I have covered the Big 12. I have a little bit of everything kind of I live in Arkansas now. I got a little bit of everything, whether it be politically or, geographically, kind of in my DNA. And here's what I will say is, Oregon State and Washington State have great fan bases, and all they want, just like UCF fans, just like Oklahoma State fans, Iowa State fans, they want their schools to be able to compete at the highest level. That's all everybody wants. So I hope those schools end up okay. That being said, guys, it is an uphill climb for those schools. I know Colorado, as an addition, is an easier sell to Fox and ESPN to me. And let's be honest, I'd love to be altruistic and say, no, everybody matters, but that's what this is. The TV companies, they drove Oklahoma and Texas, the SEC. They drove UCLA and USC to the Big Ten. They drive Colorado, obviously the Big 12. I appreciate the comment. The TV companies, I love Brett Yormark. They don't drive the bus. The TV companies, the ones driving the bus. Oregon State and Washington State are the tougher sell. Who is the flagship program in the state of Colorado? Colorado is. Who is the flagship program in the state of Washington and Oregon? Neither of those schools are. And I think that is something that we have to acknowledge. And I don't like acknowledging it because I don't think that's the way college sports should work. But that is the honest reality. And I'm sure UCF fans, you all have an amazing fan base, a growing, massive number of alumni. But the power brokers still in the state, at least for now, reside in Tallahassee, Gainesville, and Miami. And so you have to understand the dynamics of those states, the dynamics of current television as it sits right now. Those schools, it's a bit of a tougher sell to the TV companies.
And what do you make of the flagship program in the state of Connecticut, UConn? How do they fit in all of this?
Yeah, this one's a tough sell for me, guys. So I was actually just speaking with John Kurtz over from KC Sports Network, does a great job covering Kansas State, does a great job covering the Big 12. And so he views, he views them as kind of half in, half out. And I am not there. I am not with UConn being half Power 5 school. I love basketball. It is my favorite sport to play. It's one of my favorite sports to watch, like how quick it is. I share Brett Yormark. He's a hoop head, guys. Let's be honest. He's not a college football guy. He's a hoop head. I share his enthusiasm for basketball. That being said, football drives the bus, and their football is not strong enough, and I don't think their football gets meaningfully better. I mean, maybe they do for playing in Texas a whole lot. They probably do maybe a little bit for having UCF being in Florida, but their football is not strong enough for me. And look, here's the thing. They had a wonderful 6-6 year last year, or 6-7, I guess, in the end. But that's kind of an aberration. That's kind of an outlier for them. And Jim Mora Jr., God love him. Well done, buddy, for resurrecting what looked like, I mean, just a sinking ship of a career. Hell of a job. But it's a tougher sell for me because football is what drives this bus, and their football program is not really in any way, shape. I mean, guys, last offseason, we're talking about them maybe, hey, do you make the drop down to FCS? Is that kind of the best thing for a UConn football at this point in time? Obviously, the answer is no, but their football is not good enough in a meaningful way, at least for me, to in good faith add them to the league. If everything else does not, if no Arizona, no Oregon, no Washington, no Utah, fine. And no Arizona State, if that's the case, maybe you consider that. Sure. But that's kind of, they're like way down the list for me, in my opinion.
All right, Josh. Well, obviously 2024 holds a lot of potential fun down the road, but let's zoom in on 2023. Obviously, the Big 12 this year opening up its arms to 4 new schools, including UCF. In your opinion, amongst those 4 schools, which one is best positioned to make some noise in the 2023 football season?
UCF. That is the short answer, and it's a combination of things. I think BYU is an interesting spot. I think they're the second team. Houston, I'm a lot worried about Houston and Dana Holgerson's position, and I don't think Cincinnati is in a good spot roster-wise. Coaching-wise, don't love Scott Satterfield backing into that job. So that's where I'd go on that angle. UCF, I'm a huge Gus Malzahn guy. I am like, I do not think Auburn should have fired him. I do not love the gimmicky motion, and you all, I'm sure you all say at this point. I don't love some of the direct snap type stuff. They don't do as much as that. I think now we know.
What about the 64-yard field goal attempts?
Those.
Yeah, that happens.
So some in-game things for Gus. I think we can all admit, it's a little bit of a challenge. But I will say this: I think he likes being in Orlando. I think they're going to give him the resources. I think them as a not just this season, but them as a hey, look, you're not getting as much time at your SEC school to play. Come transfer in, or hey, look. Potentially, you want to go to an SEC school. Well, I can promise you a bit more playing time. They're in a great spot recruiting-wise in Florida. They're also now in a power conference. They're also about to play some games in Texas. They're also about to have an alumni base that's going to get a bit older and a bit wealthier. All of those things are very important, as we know, to building a successful program. It comes to this season. I am not John Rice Plumlee's number 1 fan, but I will admit this. He is a very capable quarterback. He is a very good player. I will say this. I'm not as sold on him as a passer as I would like to be. I think it's a fair criticism.
We've heard that before.
I'm sure you all have heard of. I'm sure you all have heard enough of that.
It's come up before a time or two.
Yeah, the Louisville game. I mean, I was just like, man, I want it for the guy. I think he's got the ability. I will say though, swagger is one thing that young man has got plenty of. Noticed at the Big 12 Media Days, that guy has a whole lot of, big, energy. So shout out to him. But I think they are best positioned to have if there were any team to be like, oh, they're in the Big 12 title mix when November rolls around, it's going to be UCF, in my opinion.
All right. Well, Josh, if your good buddy Gus Malzahn called you tomorrow and said, hey, Josh, I'm joining the Big 12. You've covered this conference for a long time. What do I need to know? What do I need to know about this conference? What do I need to prepare for? What do I need to plan for? What advice would you give Gus if for some reason he called you and said, hey, Josh, I need your advice?
Well, Gus, pick up the phone, call. DMs are open. I would say this. I would say, so the week-to-week grind in this league is much different. Like even the SEC. So I went to Missouri. There is no Vanderbilt in this league, right? Like even that league has a bottom. This league does not have a bottom. Last year, I think West Virginia was probably the worst team in the league. They swept the Oklahoma schools, which if you told a West Virginia fan, hey, we swept the Oklahoma schools, they'd be like, that's probably a really good year for us. No, it was not. Iowa State was terrible. Actually, I think Iowa State was last place team last year. If Iowa State had scored 20 points in their first, I think it was 8 or 9 games, whatever it was, they would have won like 7 of them. Their defense was elite last season. It is that week-to-week grind in the Big 12 that, just no disrespect to the AAC, but like, you know what, you get a break sometimes, SMU, because they can't stop anybody from scoring. We saw that in the Houston game last year, right? Houston sometimes can't stop anybody from scoring, and all we saw that in the SMU game / Texas Tech game last year, right? Those games, and even the Kansas game, like that is the one thing about this league is when you play Kansas, who used to be the down team in the league, Kansas might have the best player on the field in every single game they play this year. They're going to have the most dynamic player on the field in Jalen Daniels. I mean, they probably will. That is where this league is. Every single week is going to present a different challenge. I think the one thing I don't have to tell Gus, though, is that Gus is familiar with that. That's the SEC. Every single SEC school brings something different. The Big 12, it's not quite, every team's got athletes, but every team does bring something different to the table, whether it be Mike Gundy as a coach, whether it be Jalen Daniels as a quarterback, whether it be the defense Iowa State has. That's the one thing I think UCF fans, and I think, you just can't prepare for that until you live it. Every single week presents a new and fun challenge, which I think is going to make this league a lot of fun this year.
Everyone talking about Texas going to win that Big 12. You buying or selling on the Longhorns?
You have to. I think you have to, because the way this league has worked the last 3 seasons, right? So last 3 years, 6 different teams have played for a Big 12 title: Oklahoma, Iowa State, Baylor, Oklahoma State, and then Kansas State, TCU. It's Texas's turn. It is Texas's turn. And this team, to me, is uniquely talented in a way that some of them say, oh, they've got talent. Well, their offensive line, which Sark has put a massive investment in the recruiting, is a lot better. I think that it would take, and here's the thing, I actually don't know if it matters who plays quarterback for them. I'd be shocked if Malik Murphy and Quinn Ewers were both bad, but they've got so much talent on the outside. This to me is probably the second best receiving core in the entire country behind Ohio State's. They have got different kinds of guys who can different kinds of ways. Their running back room should still be good enough, even after losing Roshan Johnson and Bijan Robinson. And they have playmakers at all 3 levels of their defense, returning in the portal, all that stuff. So this is the year. Their schedule, if you look at it, it actually is pretty challenging compared to other Big 12 teams, but there is no doubt they are the most talented roster in this league, full stop. There's no doubt about that. I mentioned the Money in the Bank earlier. They have got that briefcase, gentlemen. They have to cash in because they're about to go to the SEC. This is their best chance at a conference title in maybe the last 10 years, save the one time they went to the conference title game. I guess that was 2018, 2019. This is their best shot right here.
Well, let's say Texas can't get out of its own way. Who do you see playing in that conference championship game?
K-State. I think K-State makes a lot of sense. Now, we've said this before about teams that have, had a great year, then come back the next season and where they at. People looking at Texas Tech, obviously, too. I've got some questions about their quarterback health. Last year, they had 3 guys I liked, all of which, could be starters in this league. Devontae Smith, who is now at Devontae Smith. Totally forgetting his name. Donovan Smith, at Houston now. Baron Morton, who's their backup, very, very talented young man. And Tyler Shuck, who is good but cannot keep himself on the field. Their defense looks like it's getting a little bit better. So I'm curious to see how that goes, but people are looking at Texas Tech. I'll believe it when I see it. I think TCU, weirdly enough, not a lot of buzz at Big 12 media days for a team that made the national title game last year. Pretty quiet. Very, very quiet on the TCU front at media days, them too. And then I think Baylor. I think the one thing that we forget sometimes is that guys get older and they get better. And I think Blake Shapen is in a good position to do that. I also think it's a staff that they were so good back in 2020 of evaluating what they did well or what they didn't do well and then translating that to success in 2021. Last year, a lot of examples of them kind of hitting that wall. I think once again, Dave Aranda is maybe the most self-reflective coach I've ever come across. I think he's very good at that. I would not be shocked at all. If it's not Texas, I'm going to go with Baylor and K-State in the Big 12 title game in 2023.
You heard it from Josh Neighbors. Josh, enjoyed having you. Good takes tonight. Come back, will you?
Anytime, gentlemen. Anytime. Go Knights. I also got myself a nice picture with Nitro at the Big 12 Media Days. Very thrilled to see him. And I'm thrilled to have UCF now in the Big 12.
Josh Neighbors, appreciate you. Thanks for being with us on Suns Live.
For sure.